Hello, everyone, and once again, welcome to Cut and Splice. This is Matt,
And this is Jason.
And this is Gil.
and this time around, we are going to be discussing a rant that I went on probably 13 years ago. I was probably drunk, but it actually garnered the response from Jason to actually have a T-shirt made for me. Uh, uh, uh,
Do you
in
still
which
have the T-shirt?
I still have it.
Good to know.
um, I I just blurted out the words Italian neorealism kicks French new wave ass. I have, as I hope uh, my friends and our loyal listeners have, grown up over the last 10 to 13 to 15 years. And my opinion has become a bit more nuanced, but I think I still stand by my opinion. I don't even remember what exactly caused that diatribe back in the day. I still know for sure that my favorite film of either of the two movements uh, came from Italian neorealism. Uh, but otherwise, yeah, I guess we're taking a blast from the past and trying to use our adult brains to dissect my drunken rantings from more than 10 years ago.
Drunken, pretentious ranting of a film student. Yeah.
That really,
Pretty much.
I think that really is the key word. What Gil just said there, because I don't remember how you started the whole thing either. I don't remember. Like, I don't know if you had just seen a certain movie or if you'd had a Facebook argument with somebody, or I don't know. But I just remember that Gil and I were in some room of our house, and at one point Matt walks in, starts talking about a conversation or something that has happened to him, and delivers his, what would you call it? His
Diatribe?
thesis statement, his the key of everything he's trying to get at here. And as he just said right there, it said this Italian neo-realism kicks French new wave ass. And I remember Gil and I laughing, and we spent the next couple minutes talking about how I don't know if any of us, including Matt, had ever heard such a concise and incredibly pretentious statement. It was just so marvelously funny and probably accurate. I don't know.
That's strangely funny because it's really not that funny, especially when you think about it.
If you know
Looking
Matt,
back,
though,
but
if you know Matt,
in the moment, it was you had to be there kind of moment for sure. And then of course we're gonna drill it into the ground by talking about it for the
of
next.
course, of course. So yeah, as Matt pointed out, we laughed. We thought it was funny, and I had just discovered a website that now is very common. There's probably about 5 or 6 of them, at least, maybe dozens or even. But at the time was kind of revolutionary to me, I thought, because we're talking about probably well over 10 years ago now. But I don't know if it was Cafe Press or one of these other ones, but some website where it was just like, come on our website, give us money and give us a design, and we'll just make you a t-shirt. And I was like, this is one of the greatest moments ever. I gotta make, I don't know what it was, Christmas or his birthday or something, but we ended up making Matt a t-shirt that just said, Italian neorealism kicks French new wave ass.
Yeah, no, and in preparation to this episode, I had to re-examine my thinking because I know at the time I sort of agreed with the premise, and I think I still do, but like Matt said, I do think it's more nuanced the more you think about it. And at
Yes.
the same time, at least me personally, I think I'm grossly undereducated about both these movements to be an authority.
I think I can't speak for Matt, but I think that I would agree that I was, because I believe that I even asked you guys, give me some examples of both of these movements, because I don't even know what the heck was in them.
Yeah.
But now, of course, many years later, I have seen some movies from both of these movements. But for this particular recording, I felt it was only fair for me to go online and see what the internet referred to as the actual examples of what would have, kind of been the movies to start, or the movies to, the ones that would represent those movements, and stuff like that. So that's what I did. I ended up watching 3 or 4 movies in preparation for this. But
So which were those movies that you saw?
well, and I mean, obviously it's up to everyone's interpretation, but I watched for the Italian Neo-Realism. I figured I might as well go in chronological order, right? With when they actually released and stuff. I went with Rome, Open City, which is Italian Neo-Realism film, and then of course the Bicycle Thieves, which you guys have been telling me was a great movie for over a decade. It just never quite got around to seeing it.
Oh, so that's the first time you've seen it?
First time? Yeah. Can you believe it? Right?
Oh, well, that alone that's why this episode is worth recording.
Right? I felt I'll tell you, it's my favorite one out of the 3 that I saw.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And then everyone said, for you guys were recently at my house, we were discussing this whole thing, and I was talking about how, like, I feel like at some point in time in school, I had to have seen a Godard film. It doesn't seem likely that I hadn't, especially since I took a whole class on French, history of French cinema and everything. But I don't know which one I would have seen, or if maybe I missed that day or something, but I could not remember seeing Breathless. And everyone said that's the film to see by him. So I watched that. And right now, when we started recording, I was about 2/3 of the way through 400 Blows, but I didn't quite finish it. But I'm not too worried about not finishing 400 Blows, because even though I was enjoying it, and I'm sure it's a very good movie, and I'm sure we'll end up talking about it and everything, I think I might have mentioned this to you when you were over at my house, but I, strangely, out of all these filmmakers, I've seen a lot of Truffaut already. So, I that was the one I was the least worried about, because I have seen at least 6 or 7 of his films already. So
I guess Matt, you should lay the groundwork. What was your thinking at the time, like your rationale at the time, and how has it evolved today?
I think at the time I hadn't seen as much Truffaut as I have now, and I very deeply respect Truffaut. That said, compared to De Sica and Antonioni, I don't think any of the French New Wave filmmakers come close. I also, I mean, Fellini is kind of like New Wave. Sorry, not New Wave, but Neo-Realism adjacent. But
that's what I figured as well.
But I
Well,
mean,
basically, there was a thing about like
yeah.
Fellini and a few other ones where their first couple movies were piggybacked on that movement, but then they veered off. A lot of them just veered off because it was a short-lived movement.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I mean, that's why I said adjacent. But
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, though, the funny thing is, Truffaut seems to me as the 2 pillars of the French New Wave are Truffaut and Godard. I don't think it's easy to argue against that, right? It's Truffaut and Godard.
I think you're right.
And Truffaut, even though unfortunately Truffaut died, I think, a year before I was born. I mean, Godard had a longer career, but Truffaut had a longer successful career, which transcended the French New Wave and everything like that. As far as I'm concerned, the 400 Blows is the best film of the French New Wave, at least that I've seen. But Breathless is like the French New Wave film that everybody has to see. And I had to sit through it. and it's shit. I'm sorry, it's just a bad movie. It's a poorly made movie,
I
and
did want to talk about that one. Yeah.
and it is
Yeah.
and it is pretentious as all holy hell. It's like if you gave a film student at Columbia College who wanted $10,000 to make a movie $20,000, and he just went off and made it, and it, it's probably what inspired the Family Guy joke of, hey, French people, a good-looking guy looking depressed and smoking a cigarette is not a movie. It's just not a good movie. It's just not well made. The tragedy carries no weight with you. The woman like tracing her lips at the end of the film, it was just like I started laughing.
Okay, I'm just gonna go right out here and ask, what's the symbolism there? I missed it.
If somebody wants to enlighten me, I'm welcome. Welcome to suggestions.
I guess I should have rewatched it. I barely remember it, but one thing I was gonna say is that I was surprised. I don't even know if pleasantly surprised that when I looked up my rating of Breathless, because that is the 10-pound jump cut elephant in the room.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah, like the I rated it an 8, and I wonder if that was like, film student pretension forgiveness kind of thing, because I have to admit. And I watched a couple of YouTube videos just kind of breaking down the main movies, just in case the ones that go beyond of what we've seen or heard of, and to get an idea of like both of the movements. And I kind of realized that Breathless is a very consequential movie, even if it's as a standalone movie or a story. It's not amazing, but the some of the stuff he does there, whether it's the jump cuts, the no coverage, some of the odd camera movement, the handheld stuff, it completely revolutionized. It's sort of like how Terrence Malick has made too many movies, like especially later in his career. Like he's already done his bit. Like you've done those 4 movies that were very inspirational, and they did the trick. Like they've influenced a lot of filmmakers to make very interesting movies. That's what Godard should have done too. He should have just stopped making movies after a few and just let them do their thing, because Breathless like is responsible for so much of like Scorsese, like Tarantino. Like there's a lot of like stuff, the devices that people take directly from Breathless and other Godard movies. But I do agree that Truffaut is the better filmmaker, which, funny enough, there's just now there was an article circulating by Tarantino saying that he thought Truffaut was an amateur and not a very good director, like a bumbling amateur or something, which I disagree, but, he's got his opinions.
In the article, does it say Tarantino thinks that or thought that in the past?
No, like right now, because he's got a new podcast, so he's kind of doing the whole like talking to everybody right now, and he's just like shooting the shit about everything film theory, and he's got like hot takes, and whenever he says something, it's news, at least for like film buffs, so they put it circulates. But in any case, so I think I've seen 1 or 2 other Godard films, which I don't recall, and it's probably just says a lot about it. I think aside from Breathless, and even that, like Matt says, I probably agree, if I could remember it, that it's not consequential. Definitely not as much as The Bicycle Thief, because that one is ingrained into my memory. I know that movie so well, even if I've seen it just once. But I've realized that my movies, like the stuff that I made in film school and a little bit after, a lot of it was influenced by those 2 movements. I did use some tricks from Godard, like I did do some jump cuts, but at the same time, I also and hand in hand, I had the whole thing with the final scene where he's like looking at the hand, looking into this, looking into that. Like it was a very Bicycle Thieves. That's where I got it from.
Yeah.
That scene I actually rewatched just that one scene today, just for reference, and I'll get to that after, but I was just going to reflect on Breathless, that it's weird that I rated it so high, but maybe I mostly gave it that rating not as a standalone movie, but just for how important it is for cinema at large. But I do agree that Godard is, if anything, what Tarantino says about Truffaut right now, I would apply to Godard. He really is an amateurish filmmaker that just experiments and tinkers. And I can only imagine that like 70% of his movies are train wrecks, but it's those like, the Breathless or a few that are good enough to be watchable and are consequential because they influence better filmmakers to implement those devices in a more sophisticated way, like a Tarantino or a Scorsese or a Spielberg or
Yeah.
So that would be just like my thought about that. But I found that interesting that I like, do I like dislike the French more than the Italian Neorealism? I kind of, it's and yeah, the 400 Blows is great. I love that. I do think it's the best movie of the French ones.
Yeah.
I've seen a few by Antonioni is Italian, so I've seen a few by him, and he's
L'Avventura,
decent.
Passenger, L'Avventura and the Passenger are.
Yeah, I saw The Passenger and I saw La Notte.
Yeah,
and pretty good. Like a bit slow, but good. Especially The Passenger was pretty good. Yeah. So it's very interesting. One thing I noticed about I realized the neo-realism is the movies that they've influenced in the modern age, I dislike. I think they actually hurt, and maybe that's why a lot of the directors there veered off that movement very quickly because it came out of the depression, coming out of the end of the Mussolini's reign in Italy. So there was freedom of expression, and ironically, like a lot of those movies were very pro-labor, semi-communist, and they're thinking just not full on like communism. Which is funny that Matt actually find those movies more endearing, being that it's politically is opposite of them. But I've realized that the influence that those movies have had on cinema at large is not that positive for me because they've probably influenced people like Ken Loach and movies like Lady Bird and Sling Blade, those movies that shoot everything in the wide and are super realistic and try to be down to earth and are not overly cinematic. I feel like that's that style of movies that have been kind of like evolved from that. I really don't like nowadays, but I love their movies. So I guess they just did it right. They did it just the right amount of realism, but mixed in drama in there, like the way De Sica did it, and some Fellini did it with his first couple of movies. But that modern directors really don't find a very good balance between the realistic approach, but still keeping it cinematic.
That's interesting.
So, just forgive me in advance. I'm gonna go on a rant.
No, I ranted, so totally go. I don't know why I pushed it all on you, but I was just like, I need to say this, I don't forget.
I mean, honestly, it might be that we structured this wrong, and the Bicycle Thieves just should have been a full episode. Like, to put this into perspective, I actually wrote an article for the Foundation for Economic Education on the message of the Bicycle Thieves, at least my perspective of the ethics behind the Bicycle Thieves. And I mean, I think that a lot of people, I mean, I think even De Sica would have viewed the Bicycle Thieves as being somewhat socialist and, working class and everything like that. But I really view the movie as fundamentally a movie about the importance that things have to people. That property matters. We've sold everything that we have so that I can go out and earn more. And then somebody took this thing from me. And I'm going to go on this journey just to try to get this small thing back that my life depends upon, that this person took away from me, this faceless person, for no reason. And in that last moment of desperation, sorry, this movie came out in the 1940s. You don't get to call spoiler alert. his downfall at the end of the movie was that he does that to somebody else.
Yeah.
He doesn't get, and here's the thing. Okay. There was a movie that came out in 2011 called A Better Life. I don't know.
I remember. I never saw it, but I remember the movie.
Gil, I don't know if you saw it or heard about it.
A Better Life? I don't believe I have.
It's basically just the Bicycle Thieves.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
there's been a couple of movies, by the way, recently. That there was one with horses recently. Somebody with with horses being stolen. Like in the last few years, there was a movie that was basically done based on the same template as the Bicycle Thieves.
But it was actually kind of funny because this is where I thought that Italian neorealism actually hit the ethical mark, where modern day American filmmaking just fell flat on his fucking face. Because A Better Life was about an illegal alien, undocumented immigrant, whatever the politically correct term is, in somebody who was born in Mexico and then went to the United States and didn't fill out the proper paperwork. Okay, but he has a truck and he needs it for his job, and then somebody steals his truck and he goes on this quest with his son to find his truck. And the thing is, the ending of A Better Life, again, 2011, fuck spoilers. He finds his truck that has been impounded, and he just steals the truck back from the impound lot and gets pulled over and then deported. And then the end of the movie is this uplifting thing of him just going right back into the United States, breaking through the border again. And like, holy fuck, did you miss the point of the original movie?
Yeah, I'll say.
I mean, the point of the Bicycle Thieves, that's actually a major problem. Like, when the movie was originally released in the United States, there were a lot of posters that put it out as the Bicycle Thief, and it's very important that it's not singular. There are thieves.
I'm looking at one of those posters right now. Yeah, on the
I
IMDb page.
recall for
Thieves.
the longest time that it's yeah.
And then it says thief on this one poster. But anyway, please continue.
No, it's supposed to be thieves, because at the end of the film,
yes,
our protagonist stoops to the level of the person who hurt him, to the point that he's willing to hurt somebody else for his own sake. And there's no virtue at the end of the movie. There's no, he's shamed not only by the people around him, but he feels ashamed for the message that he sent his son. That even in his time of strife, despite all the strife that he's going through, despite all the pain, despite everything that's been inflicted upon him by this one act of greed from some other person, he has stooped to that level, and he was willing to do it to another person just for his edification, just for his well-being. And I think that actually sends an important moral message that, about, there is a certain amount of moral virtue in having to just deal with the fact that, somebody hurt you. You don't get to hurt somebody else in order to make your life better just because somebody hurt you. And I think that was really the fundamental, simple, basic, obvious message of the Bicycle Thieves that got completely lost when it was.
The Better Life was. It says it is based on a story by an author. So I'm not sure if it was a direct.
But I mean, look at the movie.
Bicycle Thieves.
They can claim that all they want. I mean, it's the same damn movie.
And what was the thing in the end you said was different? That he doesn't steal something in the end?
No, the guy at the end of A Better Life, he finds the truck that was stolen from him.
Oh, and he gets it back.
But it was at an impound lot, and he breaks it out of the impound lot, and immediately gets pulled over by the cops. And since he's undocumented, he gets deported, and then he goes back.
So it becomes they co-opted the story of the Bicycle Thieves in order to tell a story about immigration, basically.
Exactly. Where he's virtuous the whole way. It's just that the system is bad.
Which I just want to go on record saying I don't have a problem with that, so long as you put in the credits, inspired by blah blah blah. You just don't or like whoever wrote that book, if that really was a book that this thing was based off of, if that person would just say, hey, I saw this Italian film and it inspired me because I thought this could be a thing that could be universal and could work with our current struggles in this country, blah 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 blah. You got to give credit where credit's due. It's so perfectly obvious that in terms of the story that it's like the same thing.
I see. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, as far as the bicycle thieves, I mean, what it is that it still is about the system being problematic. Which is why it's very socialist. It's creating a system where this person has no help. Like he's in a dire situation, and he has no help, and he really needs to make things happen. And because there's no support system, safety net, he has to resort to committing a crime. That's pretty much what that says. I mean, that movie is that he is a victim. He is not a criminal. He is a victim of a system that is not well built to help those in need that want to work, that want to do the honest thing, that want to. But once the system fails him, he no longer respects the system. So
he respects it for a long time, but over time, each little problem that he keeps encountering, chips away at his morals.
Moral and trust in the system to fix things, because his property was stolen and he was trying to get it back, and he couldn't through different means. And that's when you say, well, I'm going to have to take matters into my own hands. And and sometimes you can make bad decisions that way.
And I agree with what you're saying, Gil, that I'm sure on some level that's probably what the director's intention was. I also kind of agree with Matt that even if that's what their intentions were in making it, it's very easy to take the exact same story and say, well, is it a failing of the system because of a lack of social safety net, or is it a failing of the system because of a lack of law and order, and that the city the injustice that's been done to him is not being fixed, and so on and so forth. And of course it could be both. There's no one right answer. It's because despite what the filmmaker was intending, it is just a really good story, and it's a very compelling thing. And you're absolutely right, Matt. We should have done a whole episode on this. But I just wanted to say, because I didn't have a whole lot to say about the Bicycle Thieves, other than it was like my favorite of all the films I watched recently. My favorite thing in it was Bruno.
Oh, yeah.
The little boy. He's so compelling. I think he's a great character. I love that, like, it's one of those things where it's like the movie starts and the guy gets the bike back from the impact or from the pawn shop or whatever. And there's a weird moment where he comes home and it's like he's asked the kid to kind of like tune it up a little bit for him or something. And I'm kind of like, that's weird. I wonder why that's the case. And then the mom makes 2 sandwiches, a big one and a little one, and hands them to the husband. And he goes into the other room and he hands the little one to the boy and puts one in his pocket. And the little boy mirrors all his movements and puts the little one in his pocket. And you see that the little boy is wearing this like little, he's a grease monkey. He's got like a little jumpsuit on. And I'm like, what the heck? And then I find out, because they're going through such tough times. The little boy's got a steady job at a little gas station mechanic shop thing. That's why he knows the bicycle so well. He went before they pawned it. He, probably was, wrenching on that thing all the time. And it's just so funny. It's like he's such a little compelling character, and he's running around the whole time with his dad trying to find the bike and everything. He's got some of the best lines too.
So it's also proof that we should normalize burning kids with cigarettes to make them cry on set again.
Yeah, because that was done on
What?
that set.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. He cries at the end of the movie. They couldn't get him to cry, so they burned him with a cigarette.
God, that took a dark turn.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm clicking right now. I want to see, did Enzo ever make another movie?
Yeah. But you see the stuff that
Apparently
you
he
said
did.
there. He did.
Wait, hold on, maybe not.
You know, I mean,
Oh, that was his first film. Yeah, he did make about 10 other films. He made movies for another 20 something years after that.
Oh, I mean, that's
pretty good for a child actor. A lot of them don't make more
right.
movies.
I know.
Yeah, I mean,
not bad
compared to what the kid went through during Come and See. I mean, that's nothing.
Yeah,
that's hardly the point, Matt.
But the stuff you said there, Jason, like that shows how good of a movie that is.
It's so good.
Like the
so good.
The imitating of the dad, like the kid looks up to his dad.
Yes.
So they're setting all this up. That's why it's so heartbreaking in the end when he fails him. Like that's like it's worse than going to jail. It's worse than not having money. Like to know that you've disappointed your child and might be a bad role model is so heartbreaking. And that's why I think it's a very effective movie. And that's why it's much better than 400 Blows. 400 Blows is heartbreaking in its own way. It's about the kid there. It's like the loss of innocence and everything. But yeah, it's not as specific, as impactful. And that's why I think some of the modern movies that go for this realistic approach, say like Lady Bird, is that it's that play of like visual symbolism and drama is that's overplayed. It's just that the use of I guess a good example would be like Up in the Air, I guess, like because Jason Reitman, he used like non-actors there and he made it about the times and everything, but it was still a very stylized movie.
Very good movie.
But having those moments, it's not exactly neo-realism style, but I'm just saying it's like having touches of these things, like of these elements, but still bringing whatever you're gonna bring to the movie. I think that's the best approach. But going all real or all like crazy like the French, it's I think the hybrids is really what work. It's the people that cross-pollinate these ideas and styles that really make the home runs.
Yeah,
I would say. As far as the two movements, by the way, the essays, the video essays I watched, they actually say that the French New Wave was influenced by neo-realism, surprisingly. Yeah, because it came a little bit after. Yeah. And even though they were all about breaking the rules and changing things up and not being super real, but also a lot of the neo-realism directors, like I mentioned, pretty much all of them, after 2-3 movies, they veered off to doing normal movies. It was just kind of like a period in time where they did these very slow, realistic movies on location, but then they didn't make a lot of money. Not all of them were very, very successful, and they realized they have to make more commercial movies, so they kind of moved on. But yeah, it's interesting. But it definitely put like Italy on the map, like that whole movement. Like it's as far as like movies.
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of circle back a little bit to what we were talking about because Gil, you were mentioning some of your opinions about the Breathless and Godard in particular and stuff like that. I think even Matt mentioned some stuff about that movie. I found it very interesting when I was watching Breathless, which I believe I saw last night, I think. I immediately started thinking about Tarantino when I was watching it. And I mean, just these are some of the positive things I'll say. In a way, this is also why I was frustrated watching the movie as well. Is it had all these moments I liked, like it had, especially particularly with the way he uses the camera. I liked these things where, like in the scene where the police inspector first approaches and kind of shakes down the girlfriend, the American girl. they have her walk into the room, and that they must have this camera on a tripod or something, and they just spin all the way around the room as she walks in, makes a circle, and like gets to where the people she's talking to, back almost like a 360 from where she first walks across the window. And then as she's having the conversation, the police inspector comes across the window behind them. They follow the police inspector, and he makes the exact same circle. So they do like 2 360s around the room in one big uncut shot. And that's how they covered the shot, the whole scene. I mean, and I was like, well, that's kind of interesting because it really worked. It like allowed you to see to the geography of the room, how she comes in, and then the big glass window allows us to see the tension as the inspector comes in, across the screen, and then we follow him up to her, and so on and so forth. Then there's other scenes where they were obviously in some sort of house, and they're like getting everything from above, and we're like showing people walking from one room of the house to the next or something like that. And one shot that really made me think was about Tarantino was this the one where they're in a car together, like a taxi or something, and they stop, and he tells the guy, hold on just 1 minute, I have to get money from this guy or something like that. And they stop the car. He kind of crosses over the girlfriend, steps out, and then the camera just kind of just pans a little bit to the right, and we still see her in the back seat. We still see through the windows, and through the one window you can see him run into the background and talk to a guy. And it's just like the shot in Pulp Fiction when Jules and Vincent, when they're going to go get the briefcase from the room, and they're having the conversation about the foot massage, and they stop, and mid conversation at the door, and he says, we're a little early, let's hang back a bit. They step it backwards away from the camera, but the camera doesn't move. It's like saying, don't worry, we're going to be right back. And we watch them back away from the camera, finish their conversation, and then come back to the door all in one shot, just like the guy does in the scene. He goes over, does his business, and then comes back to the cab all in one shot. And I really liked the way that was framed, and all that stuff was all good. I really, really enjoyed all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then there's the jump cuts. And I kind of hated it. Like, I don't understand, like, it just really bothers me. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so to give Godard whatever credit I can, and I agree with you that he certainly had some really intriguing and I mean, uses of camera that we should emulate. In the movie, I'm mostly concerned with I just kind of felt like it was cinematic masturbation for
a little bit.
But
well, you can look at it as experimentation, but yes, I do agree that after a while it becomes masturbation.
Isn't I don't even want to say that. Never mind. Keep going.
But actually, one thing to bring up is that a lot of the jump cuts in Breathless were because they were shooting on short ends, and they
okay.
And they. But the thing is, I mean, I've shot on short ends. We've shot on short ends.
Yes, we have.
But and actually, when you contrast Breathless with 400 Blows, I mean, I haven't really done the research on the budget differentials between the two films, but the 400 Blows was shot anamorphic.
Yeah.
Like, 400 Blows had a bigger budget than Breathless by a long shot. So, I mean, it's very possible that Truffaut would have been inhibited in a lot of the same ways as Godard if certain things didn't fall into place for making 400 Blows. But it is just kind of something to point out.
For me, I think maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but there were moments where I enjoyed the jump cuts. there one scene that stands out to me was like when he go right after the inciting thing where he's where he's had the car chase and everything, and he's on the run. He goes to a diner to get some breakfast or something, and then he runs off to get some cash from a girl that he's been with before. And he goes to her room. She's got like a little tiny studio apartment kind of thing. And he's got this beautiful girl that he knows who's way too naive, and he just goes to steal money from her basically. And it's probably like a 3-minute scene or something, but obviously they wanted to imply that, you know, that he was there for a good 10 minutes or something, and then gets the money, you know, steals the money from her and leaves. And there's a nice thing about this thing where they use these jump cuts to kind of show the passage of time, because first he's standing up, they start talking, she starts getting ready, then he sits down in her chair in front of her vanity, then he's like over by the window, then it's other things. So it's like they're continuing the conversation, but they're jumping from moment to moment to show that there's kind of we're supposed to have been a little more time has passed than what we're actually experiencing. And I kind of like that. It kind of worked for me. But then there's these like moments that Matt just kind of talked about, like where it's a fluid shot, but there's a jump cut in the middle of it when it's like the American girl is walking, the police inspector is following her, and then the main character is following them. And it's clearly supposed to be one unbroken shot, but there's like 2 jump cuts in the middle of the shot. And now that Matt has said that, it makes perfect sense, because they were using short ends and they didn't have enough film to like film these things. And to me, it just feels super amateurish. You know, it's like, it's the worst kind of jump cut. It's not there to serve the story at all. It's like, go buy some more film and do the shot over, for crying out loud. You know, and the worst part about it for me was that the way that he's using the jump cuts in some scenes is creating a nice economic pace. You know, it's moving the story along at a chipper pace, you know, and everything's going good. And then you have scenes that reminded me of Tarantino, where he's got these long, drawn out conversations where the subject matter of what the couple is talking about, or other characters, you know, whatever. It reminded me of like of a Tarantino dinner scene, you know, which I love when they're done with his dialogue and they're so rich and so on and so forth. But you can't have both in the same movie. You know, you can't have one very noticeable technique that's pushing the pacing along at a faster than natural speed, and then slow down like just slow down like you're just slamming on the brakes to have a conversation that's seemingly about nothing, you know. And it's almost like a unintentional roller coaster that's not pleasant or something, if that makes sense.
Well, as far as the different pacing, it is intentional, because it's one of the famous things in Breathless they mentioned in film school, is that there's the contrasting of jump cuts with not jump cutting, like where it reflects on the state of their relationship. Because when there's that one long tracking shot of them walking and talking when they first meet, and that shows how they're getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And then once their relationship goes sour, there's more jump cutting and there's more staccato, you know, unsettling of pacing and things like that. So that's some of the stuff that's going on there. But I'm not disputing that the problem that Godard has, and maybe some of the French in general, is that they go a bit too far. And maybe at bottom, this is the issue between these two movements, is that the French is experimental, it's whimsical, it's not slam dunks every time. You're gonna get a lot of like misfires when you're trying new things, where the Italian was very stable. Like they thought through, like thoughtful. It was slow, it was real, but it was still cinematic. It still had drama. It still had, you know, cinematic movement and camera work, but it just slowed things down to real life and using non-actors, but good non-actors, like good faces, not bad non-actors. It's not like they brought like people that couldn't like say one line.
Yeah.
So I think the Italians were just smarter about the way they created a new style, is that they didn't go too far. That's the.
Yeah, I actually think that I mean, in terms of modern American filmmakers, you can kind of draw a lot of parallels to, some of Gus Van Sant's latest films. I mean, in terms of like, I mean, I think that Elephant is probably one of Gus Van Sant's best movies.
Never saw it.
Oh, it'll fuck you up. It is not a pleasant movie, but it's really good. It was also shot by Harrison Venus, but very slow, very methodical. I mean, it's only like 80 minutes long, but 80 minutes that feel like 2.5 hours of torture, in a lot of ways. But all done with non-actors, and then he went through and did Paranoid Park, kind of in the same way, also with non-actors. Only in Elephant, the non-actors were good. In Paranoid Park, the non-actors were really bad.
That's funny. That's accurate from what I remember of that movie.